We got this story from the Examiner. It says Morell, who testified to Congress earlier this month about the laptop letter, said he thought now Secretary of State Antony Blinken wanted the baseless claims of Russian involvement in the saga made public. The former Obama acting CIA director told House investigators that before his October 17th call with Blinken, he had no intention to write the October 19th Hunter Biden laptop letter, and testified yes and absolutely when asked if the call with Blinken, who was the top advisor for Biden's 2020 campaign, was what triggered that intent in you. Morell also said in a recent transcribed interview with congressional investigators that it was his guess that Blinken called him to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop because the future Secretary of State wanted it out in the public that the Russians were somehow involved in the saga. He also testified that one of the two reasons he helped put the letter together was to help now President Joe Biden, quote, because I wanted him to win the election. Hey, how about that? What a time to be alive, huh?
Insane. And no punishment for blatant election interference. But, a question that I have is these guys weaponize this entire process to win the 2020 election, right? You got a bunch of former intel guys partnering with social media, engaging in this clear manipulation of multiple systems just to get their guy in. They were able to, even if you don't want to discuss the issue of election fraud, they were able to weaponize this system enough to be able to prevent Trump from getting reelected when he wielded the full power of the executive branch of the United States government. What has changed? And let me add one other point in here, too. We have numerous states like Pennsylvania that change election laws in the run up to the election to give Democrats an advantage and prevent Trump from getting in. None of this stuff
Republicans
has changed.
were involved in that.
Right. So what has changed since 2020 that this deep state apparatus would allow him back in now when they've already weaponized the system to prevent him from getting in 2020?
Yeah.
Like, what's the play?
I don't know if I would phrase it as prevent him. I think what they're trying to do is slant things as heavily as possible in their favor. And that, I think, is the game. And I think Republicans need to pay attention to that. They spent too long coming out screaming fraud, 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 instead of screaming, how are they getting these ballots? How are they doing it? And then just doing the same thing. Ballot chasing, harvesting. Now Trump is coming out and being like, we're going to do the same thing. Now you're hearing Republicans come out and say, OK, we figured it out. We're going to play the game they're playing. Now I think these advantages may be lost because if Republicans actually start playing the same game, it's going to slowly balance out, though universal mail-in voting greatly advantages Democrats in dense populated areas. And it's very hard for people in rural areas to get the word out and things like that. But I think Republicans can now, understanding what happened in the past two elections, start utilizing that properly. So we'll see. I don't want to be blackpilled on this one.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the last two elections, because that clearly was a factor in 2022 also in the midterms.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that they hadn't made those adjustments at that point was a clear thing. But I honestly think, going back to something you said earlier about the social media incentives, what was the real story about this? I mean, why did so many in the media not cover this? When I went back and started looking for the book about why was the press covered, why did they cover it this way? There were people like Maggie Haberman at the New York Times who linked to the New York Post, just said, I questioned the sourcing of it. I don't know, this seems a little shady. And she got trending on Twitter as MAGA Haberman because she linked to the New York Post, even because she was, and so Jake Sherman, who's now at Punchbowl, he was at Politico at the time.
MAGA Haberman.
Yeah, he tweets it also. I wonder if the Biden campaign will respond to this. He gets pilloried by people, is forced to delete it, and apologizes for daring to link to the New York Post. So there's such a guilt that happens. Yeah. And there's no backbone by a lot of these journalists. And if they get a bunch of people yelling at them on Twitter, they're going to just do what the mob says. And so that's not changing either. That's only getting worse, I think, in this new era.
Yeah, I think Republicans are starting to wake up, and just some people I've talked to sort of behind the scenes. There's this realization that we have to do more than we've done in the past to win elections. We got to do the ballot harvesting, but in general, we have to sort of build out just a bigger ground game because Democrats have $1 billion machine that's been in place for decades. Republicans don't have that. Republicans have a system where the donor class sort of gives money to the RNC who doles it out how they see fit, where on the Democrat side, they have all these organizations that have been built out at the grassroots level. These billionaire donors give to those organizations, and the party is a little bit further down the list. So there's a whole machine apparatus that needs to be built on the right. But it seems like people are more inclined to actually do the work right now and want to build those things out. Scott Pressler is a guy who's running across the country right now trying to register voters, trying to spread the word about ballot harvesting and do what he can to build those systems out. And I think as far as what I'm seeing, even just this week, Charlie Kirk posted about this. There's more of a focus now on doing the work that's needed to build out those systems to try to give Trump the best chance, or whoever is the nominee, most likely Trump, but whatever Republican candidate is the best chance to win the election next year.
But here's the plan. We need to use their platform against them. The strategies they've used against us, we're going to use against them. So when they say vote blue no matter who, here's the pitch. Donald Trump runs as a Democrat. We all then vote for him in the primary, and now they have to vote for him.